how does this feature make a player feel? What does that 10 spins feel like? Is there a reason for me to stick around? I've just won massive on the game. Do I want to carry on playing it? Is there a chance something else is going to happen for me? Even still, when I say any studio can put out those triple pot games, or before that mega ways, you know, that this story isn't new. I think as a start-up, it's a necessity to stand out.
You know, those kinds of tensions, is that a genuine tension, or is it just, look, if you create a great game, it sells and it doesn't matter?
Branding's at the centre of everything we do, not just for that repeat custom, but just so we can finish the story as well.
A lot of studios talk about being player first. I mean, loads of studios crop up in a year, and all of them claim to be that. And it does often feel like a slogan rather than a philosophy. Or do you think that DEGEN's way, this identity-led design, will become kind of the norm or a necessity for studios to stay relevant? Hello and welcome to the G3 podcast. Joining me today is Danny Gordon, Head of Studio at DEGEN. Danny, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, it's nice to be asked.
Yeah, more than welcome. We've just been talking about United for a while, haven't we? So let's move on to cheerier things. So, Danny, a lot of studios talk about being player first. I mean, loads of studios crop up in a year, and all of them claim to be that. And it does often feel like a slogan rather than a philosophy. So when you talk and the studio talks at DEGEN about being player first, what does that actually look like in practice? So day to day, decision to decision.
I can answer this in a few ways, really. I suppose I've always professed to anyone that knows me in the industry that journey-focused game design was the way to go. So it really aligns with my core values, what they're trying to do at DEGEN. You know, the player focused really sold me. It was a good mesh with my core values, and I think they're two of the same, really. And it's about having those checkpoints in game design, game development, and just intentions for the product, all the way from concept. How will the player feel, and what does this holistic journey look like for each player? You know, we can take that to each element of game design. You look at math. And a lot of studios are like, where does this balance over 1 billion spins? I care about how it looks in 100 spins, how it looks in 150 spins. What does 200 spins? Is this player rewarded for sticking around for 300 spins on this game? Which would be fantastic if everyone did, right? What's my reason to return to a game? So I think that player focus, understanding the demographic you're targeting, you know, we're in quite a competitive space, but quite a unique one. There's a lot of high volatility elements to our games, and you need exciting anti-bets and bonus buys. What does that journey look like? You know, a lot of them just exist on games, but what does sit in there as a player who does bonus buys and high volatility games? How rewarding is the anti-bet being on for 100 spins? You know, why would I do that over the 300 spins? These are all questions in every game development that we ask. What does a session of 20 buys look like? Because that's what happens. You want the churn rate there in a bonus buy. You want to buy the feature. And what was the outcome like? How flat does it have to be for you to walk away as well? So we're looking at downsides. You know, what's exciting about this theme? What's different about it? There's a ton of themes where you can get attention by using them. And it's probably to coin a wrestling term, it's cheap heat. Yeah. You'll get a lot of eyes on the products with the with some of the themes that are used. But how can you give it an edge? How can you make it different? You know, if you're going to take that cheap heat and try and sit within an established field, either mechanism or theme, what part of the player journey does that influence and impact? What's memorable about it? So all of these are factors. Even like I say, the memories that you come away from a game with. How do you lodge yourself in that 20 spaces that someone's got in their top games, and where do you give room for it? And as long as everyone from the game design team onwards to the end product, to the QA team, the marketing team, are all aligned on that vision for the studio, and everyone's okay to challenge that as well, I think is really important. That you can get a lot of actual player-focused games into the market with that methodology, but it has to be lived and breathed right through the studio.
Yeah, I believe that you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a Wild West theme game coming out, which is one of those tropes, and alongside kind of fishing and Egypt and Greek myth. Do you see those themes as something that it's not necessarily that you want to shy away from them, as you say, to get that cheap heat, but how do you differentiate within a space that is just so incredibly saturated?
So the mechanic's got to be a full 180 from what exists in that paradigm in the market, for example. And like I say, we aim to have an edge, whatever that may be. It could be tongue-in-cheek humor. It could be, I suppose there's some skin on show in Showdown Saloon Showdown that isn't on show in some other games. So some of the wording we use across the game, and again, analysing that smaller journey, it's rewarding in small sections for players. We're aware of the other big games in that class, I would say, and it's a very, I don't want to say soulless journey, but repetitive journey for a lot of those games. We aim for every session to be different with that volatility, but we're aware of volatile games exist in that sector as well. So this one's got way more character.
It's interesting in both of your responses so far. You've turned to math and volatility, and that is usually framed as like a purely mathematical choice. It's not really something that's spoken about too much by studios compared to other conversations such as themes. And you're almost talking about it as though it's an emotional tool. So how early does emotion enter a conversation when you're building a new world, be it a Wild West, be it another fishing game?
Dependent on the emotion. I mean, some are meant to empower players, make them feel smart. That's right from a concept level. You know, like there's some great games in the market that make players feel smart and understand what they need to happen on a game next. And I don't just mean from tooltips and splash screens and player prompting. The symbols can evoke that. The environment can evoke that. You know, how do you evoke excitement? You know, do you build up the environment? Do you turn on the anti-bet and then the real frame comes to life? Like, you know, what makes things feel enhanced? And then again, just that being able to check each other across the team and go, what's the benefit of this idea? How does it make you feel versus the established way of delivering this? And I think we make a lot of different choices because of that. And I think that shines through in the content.
So DEGEN is a studio that's kind of been built by yourself with you at the top of it. So beyond being what is an interesting origin story, how does that actually influence the way you think about things like player behavior, tension, risk and reward? Because you are a player yourself, aren't you?
Oh, I'm a huge gamer. Not just slots or casino products. But yeah, I watch streamers. I'm heavily influenced by the actual video gaming space and slot gaming. And I would go as far as to say everyone that works at or with the studio is of a similar ilk as well. So it's like, yeah, a fruitful nerd fest.
So would you say that there's a difference between, I play video games myself. Is there a difference between designing for players and designing like players? And if there is a distinction, where does DEGEN sit on that spectrum, would you say?
You have to be quite selfless as a game designer. And this is from years of experience now as a game designer. If you make the game you want, only you will love it. You have to be able to cut out parts of that decision process that says, what do I want to happen? And ask yourself, what do I want to happen as a player en masse? So there's sacrifice there. A lot of it's having a talk with your own ego about what you want versus what players want, and understanding I'm an outlier in terms of players. I fit within very few categories. I assume if any of the operators whose casinos a player analyze me, I'll sit in a smaller percentage of players for my player behaviors. And understanding that's a powerful tool, right? Because yeah, you can be really self-indulgent, and you can play games. You can design games as a player, and think that's empowering knowledge. But it's better to use data, analyze how players actually play, but target actual segments, buckets of players, and really understand what makes them tick in terms of the games that they're currently playing. Again, it shouldn't ever become a self-indulgent exercise. I think every kid went and designed a game, or every kid of my type went and designed games as a kid, and it was the perfect game for them.
Yeah.
No one else in the world would have played it right. So, like, even that from being young and always wanting to be a game designer of sorts, you learn fast from your failures, really, as well. when you put stuff out and you're sure it's the best game and realize quickly it's not, when players don't respond to it well, that's the real ego check as well. It's tough. It's a tough gig. Purely game design is the toughest gig, because nothing will get your ego corrected faster than game design. So
yeah. I mean, all the biggest studios within the video games industry started with failures, pretty much. And to take inspiration from that, we've spoken about moving beyond traditional slot themes, not moving beyond as in not creating games within those themes, but instead designing around kind of a world identity, to paraphrase our discussion. And you touched on yourself being kind of inspired by games and subcultures and online communities, etc. So how much would you say that kind of grounding has shaped yours and DEGEN's belief that players don't just recognize worlds, but whether they feel authentic? And almost pursuant to that, as a video gamer yourself, in a slot game, you can't create something like CD Projekt Red has done with Witcher, or what Rockstar has done with Red Dead Redemption, or even what the kind of smaller indie kind of games can achieve on a PlayStation, such as, I don't know, a Power Wash Simulator, because you've got so much assets to play with and design with, whereas with slots you are limited. So how do you as a studio try and differentiate from all the others within the space by creating a world that is a slot, but it's not just about the gameplay, it's about everything around it?
Well, again, it's that world design. I suppose with the DEGEN project specifically, you'll have noticed a lot of the stuff looks like comic book graphics and cel shaded. So there's a whole lore that can be sold into with that, and like, I suppose it's the same. We're so used to fast media and videos and immersive worlds in games, but the original medium for storytelling to get people lost in worlds that truly, I don't know, hit the hearts of geekdom was comic books, right? Yeah. So I suppose that style really helps us shape that journey. I think that style is really friendly to being able to go, what does this world feel like to the player? And yeah, again, having unique features. I mean, interaction's a big part of why video games create that world, but we get interaction every spin. Someone pays to spin the game every time they spin it. So, like, what are you doing with that interaction? Again, that's where it's like, how does this feature make a player feel? What does that 10 spins feel like? Is there a reason for me to stick around? I've just won massive on the game. Do I want to carry on playing it? Is there a chance something else is going to happen for me? And again, the style and environment you create. Is there more to find out? Are there secrets? Are there Easter eggs? Is there hidden features on the game? All of our games have got like the not just the 3 and 4 star features, but like hidden 5-star features that give real depth to longevity and play. And again, yeah, I suppose the comic book links that are really important to us and the cel shaded art that goes hand in hand with that's not just a self-indulgent geeky thing. It's really great for creating those vivid worlds that get people to see stories quick. It's so snappy and easy to take in as well as a visual style. It's really rich for storytelling.
What are the creative or commercial tensions, would you say, when you prioritize? You clearly prioritize in atmosphere, pacing, and emotion, as well as the maths. Are there any kind of awkward conversations you either have to have with yourself or with clients about, I don't know, we've made the decision for the volatility to be significantly less than perhaps you'd expect, to make the game more enjoyable, but that ultimately means that your revenue will be
everything at the moment. And no one in the industry is going to be mad at me for saying this, but everything in the industry at the moment, you can guarantee yourself a certain modicum of success just by sticking 3 pots on something like Vegas, and it is led by Vegas, and we know every casino lobby's like that. So I suppose the easy question that you could ask us is why not? And why not do that? Why not think of a way that fits DEGEN? But none of it does fit DEGEN. All of it is even the Vegas inspiration behind it doesn't fit DEGEN. It's not the player base that we're trying to go to. So I imagine operator shouts would be, it would be really cool if DEGEN did one of these, you know, in a different style or a different way. But we'd rather do a different game.
Would you ever rule out the possibility of doing sequels, or are you totally open to that possibility if you were to have a successful thing and to create a franchise, or is that not part of the DEGEN philosophy?
Do you know what? It's a massive part of my philosophy and the DEGEN philosophy. We're thinking about forward branding with every game. You know, sometimes you can't tell the entire story in the 3, 4, 5 scenes that you might get within a game. Like, even if it's as feature rich as possible, you probably get 5 environments to tell that story. And people want to know what the character does next, especially now, you know, there is big, bold characters in our games and there's stories behind them. So yeah, absolutely, branding's at the center of everything we do, not just for that repeat custom, but just so we can finish the story as well. I find myself quoting wrestling a lot here, don't I?
I never knew you were into it. I never would have guessed.
Yeah, huge fan.
And finally, to kind of round us out, as player expectations continue to evolve, what do you think will happen to those studios that stick to surface level themes? You touched then on kind of there always being a modicum of success that they will enjoy. So do you think that those familiar mechanics and themes, if they carry on going the way they're going, they'll be fine and they'll still be relevant in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Or do you think that DEGEN's way, this identity-led design, will become kind of the norm or a necessity for studios to stay relevant?
Even still, when I say any studio can put out those triple pot games or before that mega ways, you know, that this story isn't new unless you're very well backed or operator side. And I was fortunate enough to be operator side at Vertical Games that I started when I was at Entain, and the support levels there versus what you'd get at an independent studio, that's the bit where it'd be a real struggle to survive and establish yourself without being different. We're not different for different sake. We've got a story to tell. We've got a way of designing games that we think is different, and a way of even conveying those stories that we think is different. And like I say, journey focused design, and really wanting people to see our different mechanics that we can come up with. And we exist in a world where we can create them, and we can afford to. I suppose that as a new studio is really daunting when there is easier options. But again, it's a big pie you're looking for a slice of when you're making that type of game, but you're only ever going to get the crumbs.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Danny.
Thanks,
Great to have you on the podcast. Thank you.